Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So today Ajahn Vinīta yesterday invited me to share my thoughts, reflections with you. And while I was sitting in my meditation short while ago, so my body was showing the signs of laziness to get up and do it. So I was thinking, reflecting sometime, few days. Sometimes we try to avoid things that sometimes very easy to do it than avoiding it. And we think, invest too much thinking, so many thoughts to avoid something than just did it. And sometimes doing something is easier than trying to avoid and dodge it, trying to avoid. It takes so much thinking and tension to avoid something than just did it. So I thought I was getting into that habit a little bit. A few times I tried to find some way to wriggle out of this situation. So I remember so much tension that it could create, the guilt and not being responsible, not being dutiful, and not helping the community, and afterwards all that tension. But perhaps something, when it comes on my way, just did it, and might be a best way to feel more relaxed. So thank you, Ajahn, for inviting me. And it's very funny that today we chanted funeral chanting for Ajahn Kandasilo. So many of you may know, many of you may not know him. He's one of our my first friends when I arrived in UK to Amaravati. So I was paying respect to the Buddha. I saw his picture on the shrine. So I have very fond feelings and memories of him. And I used to hang around with him, have tea in the common room many times in a few years. When I was a novice and junior monk, he was very kind and supportive, and always took my side. And so he was always a good friend, like a elder brother. So and when I saw, even it's really peculiar to think, when I saw his the picture of his dead body lying on a surface, I thought, oh, it's a shock. It was a shock, and at the same time, is he trying to do another kind of experiment? You know, he's always into different experiments. So I almost thought, I hope it's not another. I guess it's not another experiment. He's into different experiments too about his health and body. So almost it's sad to see. At the same time, it was almost a second thought: is he trying to do another kind of experiment, lying there and to connect to somewhere? So it's that kind of a very typical English character. So we had good time, fun together. So I have very fond memories of him, and very shocked and very sad that he passed away unexpectedly. But because I live in the area that the stupa field, the 4 kutis for the bhikkhus, for the monks, that's where he used to carry thousands of wheelbarrows full of leaves and different things, and to create that bit of woodland, privacy, screen. We grew lots of trees so we could build kutis in the future. So his kind of futuristic thoughts that we have four kutis now, and it's all nicely covered with different trees. And so he worked a lot there. So most of his time he spent there. People who know him very well. So my first memory of him is a monk with a wheelbarrow. He had this cage on top of wheelbarrows. He had lots of leaves, and the horse manure from that pile, and carrying all the time. He was very good with the farmer, so he has some kind of deal with the farmer, and he had special permission to collect stuff from that pile. So this is the first time that since I came to live in this country, Amaravati, that as far as I remember, one of our monks passed away. So the first kind of experience that I had to go through last couple of days. So such is life. So today being first of November, so I remember first of November always being the day for the All Saints. It's the day dedicated for All Saints, or All Saints Day in Christian religion. So in Latin, saint is, I think, is santo, and it's very similar in Pali. Santo means one who is cool, one who's fully, completely cool. Santo, danto, one who is cool. And in Latin, santo is like saint. So today is the All Saints Day. So I thought I had some thoughts. I was thinking about what do we celebrate, or what do we celebrate about a saint? What is being a saint? Or what is being a santo? What is being a danto? Santo is one who is cool, cool through liberation. In Buddhist side, it's something similar. Is the santo is an enlightened being, fully enlightened arahant. In Christian religion, Christian world, a saint is someone who selflessly dedicated one's life for the well-being of many people. So it could be many different ways of being selfless. Going back to the Buddhist term of being a saint or being an enlightened being is one who has done the service to oneself, or one who has seen oneself deeply. Is in Buddhist way of thinking about a saint or fully enlightened being. So yeah, there's a lot to celebrate, or there's a lot to think about a saint or fully enlightened or liberated enlightened being. So I can only talk about my reflections on in terms of Buddhist perspective. So one who has done the great service to oneself, so one who has realized oneself. Buddha very clearly said, so one of the most difficult, most noble task one can do is to realize oneself, to understand oneself, to realize oneself, and that's the way to realize the whole existence of humanity. One who realizes oneself, one who knows oneself. The Buddha is one of the qualities of the Buddha. One who knows the world. So once he said the world is this 6 feet long. This life itself is the world. So it's not external. This is the world. Because we are each individual worlds on their own. So, but in many ways, in terms of human existence, humanity, realizing oneself, understanding oneself, realizing yourself, is the way to realize all the other human beings as well. The whole humanity is within ourselves, within oneself. Once one realizes oneself, is the realizing the whole, complete, full humanity. You know who you are. You know the whole world. You know who you are. You know the whole humanity, existence, samsara. The whole samsara is within oneself. It is not something over there. Samsara or existence is not something that's over there. It's over here, within oneself. So and realizing oneself, and one who has fully, completely realized oneself and came to that coolness, that coolness of the heart, is the enlightenment or state of being a saint, a saintly. So we celebrate that. We think of them with lots of respect and love, and we look up to that. So what do they realize? What do they realize about themselves? So we see others as others through their bodies. We see individuals, the individual bodies. But we are all we always judge someone, or we think about someone as someone, an individual with one's body. That person is we think as a body, somebody. So as a body, but we don't call it some mind. So we call somebody. So, but what we really celebrate about a saint is not that person's body. We celebrate that person's mind. What that enlightened being or a saint has done for themselves. And we celebrate, we think with respect what they realize about themselves, not about their body, but their own mind. So we celebrate their minds, not their bodies. So the most significant or important part in this life or existence. Although we see the external existence of this life, which is the body, but the most important part is hidden, which is the mind. So that's in the end what we realize. When you become enlightened, you become fully liberated. That's your mind that becomes fully liberated. So when we celebrate the Buddha or enlightened being, we celebrate, we respect their minds, not their appearance or their external way that we see them. So, yeah, I was thinking sometime, do we really understand our own mind? And when we look at someone else, do we really look at or look into that person's mind before we judge that person? So we see someone, and it's the body that we see, and we create some perceptions, thoughts about that individual, and then whatever we create in our own mind, that's how we project about that person. So we kind of bypass that person's mind, understanding about mind. We bypass that and come to conclusion. And this is a person, and this is so and so, and this is how I understand that person. So how deeply can we understand another human being through understanding one's own mind? For instance, we all have our own, like I said, the humanity is just one thing. Like Lumpur Sumedho frequently says, consciousness. There's no 7 billion consciousness in the world. It's just one consciousness. It's a one thing, one existence. It's nothing to do with individuals. It's a one quality. Every mind has only one quality. It's very similar qualities in different proportions, different levels, but the same quality. Greed, hatred, delusion, jealous, laziness, and confusions, or clarity. When I feel confused, and my confusion is not different from your confusion, it's the same quality. So if I feel clear and happy, my clarity and happiness is not different from when you feel clear and happy. It's the same quality of mind. So that the same quality that we understand, we realize about ourselves. That's why Buddha very wisely, very clearly said, one who knows oneself knows the world. One who knows oneself knows the whole existence, or samsara. And that's how we create, because we have lots of defense mechanism, as long as we don't know ourselves, our own defilements or our own purity or impurities. So we all have both in this. I'm talking about this mind, not as an existing person, but as the mind. So we all have our purities and impurities, all the same. Whatever impurities I have in my mind, all the same as impurities of 7 billion on the planet. And whatever purity I have in my mind, my heart, it's the same quality that every individual and 7 billion people on the planet, all the same. So we have lots of, we try to defend ourselves a lot. We don't want to feel weak, and we don't like to feel inferior, and we don't want to feel vulnerable, and because we don't want to feel weak, feeble, or vulnerable, or being second or being inferior, we have the habit to create lots of defense mechanism, defend ourselves, defensive. We become very defensive. We defend ourselves from attack from another mind. We defend ourselves. We feel like someone says something, or we think it comes through that person's mind, and we don't want to accept that. We try to defend ourselves. We create that fence. So I was wondering, why do we have to do we have to defend ourselves from anything? Is there any point defending ourselves? What do we have to defend ourselves from? Why do we have to defend? Why do I have to defend myself? Why? Yeah, if I know my own weaknesses, if I know my own strengths and weaknesses, my weaknesses are not any different from the person that I'm trying to defend from, the weaknesses of that person that I'm trying to defend from, to protect from, the same weakness. So because I have not properly realized, understood myself, I create this huge fence, a wall around me, because I feel vulnerable in front of another mind. So I built this wall around me. So that wall is very hard. It's a very tough wall. Every time I go and bang on it, and I hit on that wall, I hurt myself. It's the wall that I created around myself because of the fear. So anytime that the fear is one of the major factors that we are not being able to break through, see oneself, see myself, see yourself very clearly, is the fear. The fear always creates that barrier. So we are encircled and prisoned inside that barrier that we created around us because of that fear. So there's a little sutta I read somewhere some time ago. Buddha said clearly that he said once, one who lives their life with the fear of being criticized, or with the fear of being judged. If one lives one's life of being judged or being criticized, that person lives a very unhappy life. So most of our life, more than half, sometimes the whole life, we spend on trying to avoid or defend ourselves from criticism, or from being judged, or from being not being able to fall ourselves onto a softer and gentle ground. So because we have created that strong, very rigid wall around us. It's very rigid. I'm talking about this wall, not external physical wall. It's in our own heart, our own mind. That wall, that barrier, that wall is so strong, and we hit that barrier again and again, and we hurt ourselves. And we live whole life just by being hurt by this, the wall, or the rigidity that we created in our own mind. That rigidity could be, if we go into the basic Buddhist teaching, that rigidity comes from attachment to something. I'm attached to how do I look like? What do I like to hear? What can I expect from others? We have created some attachment to self-image, or a view, or an opinion, or about my practice, or my view on something. So we have lots of attachment to different things. So those very attachments fortifies that wall around us. That wall around us. Because of that rigidity in the mind. So that's where the arising of the suffering, dukkha, the rigidness of mind is the dukkha. Because it's tight, heart is rigid, it's not soft. When heart is rigid and tight, it has no space, it cannot take anything. Ground is so hard, it's prickly, and we cannot take anything because it's prickly, it's rough ground, and the fall is very bad fall. So when we fall onto that pit or wall that we created, or well that we created, fall is very, very hard because there's no softness, the rigidity. So I was kind of contemplating, thinking sometime how much do I understand other human beings because of my rigidity? My rigid attitude towards myself, my rigidness to myself prevents me from understanding about other human beings or the whole humanity, because I'm not soft in myself. I'm not soft to myself. So that not being soft with myself, to myself, that's how the way I look into myself or look at myself, the way that I look outside, I look into the world. So myself, if I see myself dry, rigid, tough, prickly, dry, that's how I see others. That's how I perceive the world. So the way I perceive myself is the way I perceive the world. So the whole life is about, we learn from each other. Anything that, sometimes that wall, or that well, that hard ground that we fall onto sometimes, gives so much pain. The pain is very important indication that there is something to be done. A pain in the heart is an indication that something has to be done. So it's not something bad. It's not something, oh, there's a problem that I got to fix. My heart is not happy. It hurts and it's painful. I had to fix something. There's nothing wrong with that. Being fall onto hard ground, it's inevitable that we're going to hurt ourselves. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's how we learn. Being hurt by, in the end, being hurt by ourselves, our own attachment to views and feelings, and our own attachment to the way we look at ourselves. That hurts, and that pain is important. So we all go through different pains in our lives. Sometimes we are very sensitive. This mind, this heart is very sensitive. How to, if I have my heart, my mind rigid and prickly, or rough or dry, there's no softness in myself. If there's no softness or love or compassion in myself, and wherever I go, whatever I do, whatever I hear, whatever I say, every fall in my life will be a very bad fall, because there's no soft ground in my own heart, my own self, to fall onto. Ground is very, very dry and rough. So it's like an open wound. Buddha said in one of the suttas, don't carry your heart like an open wound. So open wound cannot take much. Even little bit of splash of water could hurt an open wound. So when we have an open wound, we know it's going to be infected. So what we do, we dress the wound and do something, and we wait patiently until the wound is healed. The same way, very beautiful analogy. It's the same way he said the heart, it gets hurt. It's easy, but it's the tendency that we blame the external party for our pain, our hurt. We always blame the other party, because I'm having this pain, I'm having this feeling, this dukkha, suffering, because of the other party. But according to the Buddha's teaching, because we haven't dressed the wound properly, and we don't have enough patience to wait until the wound is properly healed to be able to receive ourselves. So it's like creating, when children play, they have very safe floor, safe ground. When they fall, they have soft ground to fall, and they don't injure themselves. They don't hurt themselves. The same way, the heart has to be a soft place. When I fall, I have a safe place to fall onto. And that safe place has to be created or developed within oneself. So it takes lots of patience, many years of patience sometimes. Last week, I think it was last week, Ajahn Ananda gave his Dhamma talk. He said it took for him about 12 years just to relax in the monastery, just to feel, okay, I have arrived here, just to feel grounded in the monastery. So that's why patience has a long journey to go with us, to take us. Patience. That's why Buddha said again and again, the patience and endurance is the greatest practice one can develop and practice in one's life. Patience and endurance. It takes time. Because we think time is a waste, taking too much time is a waste. If we go back to our own mind has no age. It has no time. Mind doesn't have any time. Mind doesn't know any age. The body ages, but mind doesn't age. Mind stays. Whenever you remember yourself clearly, properly, so mind stays as it is. So it doesn't age. So that's why the patience, practicing patience inside oneself, inside this mind or in this heart, is not a waste. It may seem like it takes a long time to come into this place, to develop, to create this softness in oneself, create this softness. Because we are rigid, we have very rigid way of looking at ourselves. That rigidity hurts. That rigidness is painful. If we really contemplate, think about ourselves, we can ask that question: what does it really hurt? What does it really hurt in this heart, this mind? It's this rigidness, not feeling soft, not feeling the softness. And that's why we create lots of unskillful, unwholesome things, and we end up saying lots of unwholesome things because we try to defend ourselves. The defensiveness, trying to defend ourselves becomes the biggest part in our life. The whole life we live just to defend this mind, just to defend the rigidness, the toughness. So, like the Buddha said, once we realize oneself clearly, and once one has seen through one's own mind clearly, and that mind knows the endless, limitless softness that heart can never be injured or hurt by anything. He gives a simile, I think somewhere I remember reading. It's like a cat skin. Cat skin. You can stroke cat skin. It's very soft. From left to right, right to left. It doesn't create any rustling noise. It's soft. So he says the developed or realized, understood heart, mind would be the same, like stroking a cat skin. It doesn't create any noise because it's so soft that the bristles are so soft that it doesn't create any noise. So, and then realizing oneself in that way, and then we can become, because one of the fears that we experience, that we try to defend from, is not being able to, because we know we are vulnerable, we have lots of vulnerabilities, but it's the trust that we do not trust external individual to be vulnerable with. That's why this internal individual, the internal heart, internal mind, if your own mind is ready to receive your own vulnerability, that's the kind of end of fear. That fear, you don't see fear anymore within yourself, because you can completely, fully receive your own vulnerability, and you see you don't fall onto anything, you don't fall anywhere, you don't fall onto any harsh ground, because you have developed the trust within yourself, that you can take your own vulnerability, your own fear, your own negativity, and everything. They can fall onto your own self, but there's nowhere to fall, because it's so soft and it doesn't hurt. The vulnerability doesn't hurt, the fear doesn't hurt, because it's such a you have that developed trust within yourself, that you trust yourself to take your own vulnerability, to take your own fear, to take your own tears to yourself. And that's how you see yourself, that kind of understanding. Then you see the world, then you look at the world the same way. You see every single individual, once you have seen yourself in that way, you have developed that trust in yourself. You know how to take your vulnerability, you know how to take your fear, you know how to take your tears, your let's say fear. Fear is one of the, not one of the most the factor that we all fear from. Dukkhamasa mahabbhayam. Buddha said the greatest fear is the dukkha. Dukkha is the greatest fear. So because we all try to run away, escape from the fear, that we cannot take it, because heart is not soft and gentle enough to take it, because it's rigid. The fear comes and hits the wall and hurts. Fear comes again, hits the wall, it hurts, because we cannot take it. We're not, heart is not soft enough to assimilate, to absorb it. So then it becomes, we carry a heart like an open wound, always hurt, always painful. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's important, to understand, okay, I get hurt. Why do I get hurt? Why do I get this pain? Okay, the hurt is created by this condition, and then we can, by understanding oneself, fear can be nothing, and fear is no fear anymore, and vulnerability is no vulnerability anymore. And That's where, what we call, the Buddha said, is great compassion, great love, great compassion of the. That's why Buddha is called, ocean-like compassion. The Buddha's heart is, ocean-like compassion. That's only thing an enlightened being could have, nothing else. And the Buddha could have only great compassion. Nothing in that kind of heart, nothing could survive. No fear survives. No dukkha survives when one has realized one's own heart in and out. And that gives so much safety and trust within oneself. And that realization of oneself is the realization of the whole humanity. Then the Buddha said, then you can walk on this planet to each corner of this planet without any fear. Like, the topic is more like we were talking about saints. Why do we celebrate saints so much? So they can walk from this end to the other end of the earth. They have no fear because they know who they are. They know themselves. They know they have nowhere to fall. Their fears have no place to fall. Their vulnerabilities have no place to fall because their heart is completely soft like the air. The air, we cannot touch the air. But the Buddha says, like not being able to touch the air. Air can be touched. So just like that, in that kind of heart, one who has realized oneself is like the air. It cannot be touched by anything. It cannot be crushed by anything, broken by anything. Buddha said, I think it's once about Venerable Sariputta, the nature of Venerable Sariputta is his heart is like great earth. He says, we destroy this earth, we create pits and we make holes and we destroy the earth, but earth doesn't say anything. Earth can take it because earth is great earth. It can take it. And he says Sariputta's mind is like the great air, like this air. The air doesn't take any shape, and air cannot be touched, and it cannot be limited by anything. So he says, the heart of the enlightened being or a santo, a saint. I'm talking in terms of Buddhist saint. Santo is one who is cool. That heart is so soft and so gentle and so free, just like the air, and it cannot be grasped by anything, cannot be touched by anything. It has no shape because it knows its limitation, and it knows its limit, and it knows beyond the limit. So since today being the All Saints' Day, I always remember because many years ago, I think in '97, I have different history in Sri Lanka. So I had my first Upasampada in '97. So before I became Samanera again. So that was 1st of November, which is All Saints' Day in '97. So I still remember that day. So I received my first time Upasampada, which is not valid now, on the 1st of November, the All Saints' Day. So it's a day that I always remember. It's stuck in my mind that 1st of November is the All Saints' Day. And how similar, Santo in Latin and Santo in Pali. The Buddha says Santo, the one who is cool within oneself. So that's the Buddhist way of taking it, one who is cool within oneself, one who has done the service to oneself. Not service to the world, but one who has finished the service to oneself. So, like I said, then when the heart is Santo, Danto, when heart is soft and it's cool and it has been tamed, Danto means tamed, and it's cool and tamed, and it has no place to fall onto because it's so soft and so gentle, and it has no rigidness, so it has no place to fall and get wounded, get injured. So even though we have not realized that much, but we can. I was thinking myself, even if I haven't, if I'm not even anywhere near there, but I can try to act, or I can try to adopt that kind of attitude, softness. How can I if I see myself softly, that's the way I have to look at the other person. Same way. If I look at the other person harshly, that's because that's how I look at myself. No, I don't want to look at myself harshly, with rigidness. I want to look at myself with softness, gentleness. So if I like myself being gentle and being soft, if I like myself being treated gently, treated softly, and that's how I have to treat the other individuals gently and softly. And that has interactive, it reciprocates, it corresponds, it responds to me very nicely in a friendly way. When I am soft and gentle to others, when I practice that, after a while, it takes time, it takes lots of patience, and after that patience, after a while, it starts to respond in a very gentle and soft way, because it is me in the end developing that softness and gentleness towards the world. It has a good result. We are the ones who believe in karma. So whatever karma I create towards others is the karma that comes back to me. So if I develop softness and gentleness and understanding towards another human being, that will be the return in my heart, because it's my heart is the object that's developing that quality. So I will be the beneficiary. I will be the beneficiary of that. So whatever I develop, no matter how good or bad or like or dislike that individual or individual person or individual object, whatever, or fear, even towards my own fear. if I look at my fear with gentleness, softness, okay, fear, I have good news for you. I'm soft with you. I have no harsh, hard feelings about you. I welcome you. My fear, my vulnerability. I welcome my vulnerability with softness, and that soft, welcoming attitude will, in turn, make our own self soft and gentle. So, it could be a person, it could be an object, whatever. The whole practice. That's why meditation is not about sitting hours and hours and not talking to anybody and look away from everybody. No, it's whole life, and this every challenge in life and every pain in life, every hurt in life can be turned into a great treasure if we can see ourselves with softness and gentleness. So there's, in the end, you end up, fear has its limits. Fear is not limitless pit. It's not an endless pit. Fear is a very little. It has very limited length. Fear is not something limitless or endless pit. It has very little limited capacity. Vulnerability has very little capacity, but we give so much importance, priority to those negativity. Then they become bigger and we become smaller. So I would like to finish for today, and again I would like to dedicate my gratitude and my friendship and my brotherly feelings to our dear brother Ajahn Vinīta, and I remember him very dearly. He was a good, nice friend to me. He was a very kind friend to me, and I remember him every day because I live in the area where he worked a lot, exactly where he worked most of his time. He's carrying his wheelbarrows and creating all that little bit of woodland. So I would like to finish for today, and I would like to dedicate my all the goodness that I have in my life. I would like to dedicate to in memory of dear brother Ajahn Vinīta.